I used to believe that nothing unexpected ever happened in my life. My days followed simple patterns. Open a cafe at dusk, wipe the same tables, brew the same coffee, watch strangers pass through without leaving any mark behind. I never imagined that one quiet evening, someone would walk in and rearrange everything I thought I understood about my heart. The bell above the door rang just after sunset. I looked up from the counter and saw him standing there, rain clinging to his jacket, eyes scanning the room as if he wasn't sure he belonged. He hesitated before stepping inside, like the cafe itself had challenged him to decide. Something about that pause stayed with me. That was the first time I saw Ryan. He came in again the next night, and the night after that, always around closing time. He never ordered much, just coffee black, no sugar. He always sat near the window, watching the street instead of his phone. Eventually, our lives began to overlap in quiet, ordinary ways. A nod when he entered, a few words about the weather, a half smile that never fully committed. One night, when the rain poured harder than usual and the streets emptied faster than normal, he stayed long after the final customer had gone. I cleaned tables slowly, pretending I wasn't aware of him waiting. When I finally asked if he needed anything else, his answer surprised me. "Just company," he said. From that night on, talking became our habit. He told me he trained every morning at the sports center nearby, that he felt tired all the time, but not just physically. I told him I once planned to leave this town, and never did. Neither of us shared too much, but the silences between our words began to feel warmer instead of empty. One evening, without warning, he mentioned her. "My girlfriend thinks I'm working late tonight," he said casually, staring into his coffee. The word girlfriend landed quietly, but it echoed loudly in my chest. I told myself it didn't matter. People have partners. People also make friends. But something in the way he said it, guarded, distant, made it feel heavier than small talk. Her name was Lucas. "She's kind," he said, patient. "She believes in me more than I believe in myself." I asked him why he looked so tired when he talked about someone like that. He didn't answer. He just looked away. After that, things changed in ways neither of us named. Our conversations deepened, becoming more careful, more private. We never touched. We barely leaned close. But the space between us felt alive, tense in a way that made my chest tighten every time the doorbell rang. Then came the night of the storm. The sky broke open just as we were locking up. Rain slammed against the pavement, like it was angry about something it couldn't fix. Ryan stood beside me under the narrow awning, both of us trapped between the empty street and the closed cafe. "Guess I'm not walking home," he said quietly. I hesitated before offering him half of my umbrella. We walked side by side, shoulders almost touching, listening to the rhythm of rain and footsteps. No cars passed. No voices echoed. Only us, under a flickering streetlight. He stopped. "I feel like I'm living two lives," he said. I didn't ask him to explain. Some truths sound heavier when spoken aloud. But he kept going anyway. Expectations. Family. Being someone he wasn't sure he wanted to be. I listened without interrupting, feeling the weight of every word settle between us. When he finally looked at me, his eyes were unguarded in a way I had never seen before. "That's why I keep coming back," he said softly. I didn't ask what he meant. I already knew. For a moment, his hand lifted between us, uncertain. It hovered close to mine, close enough that I could feel the warmth through rain-cooled air. Then, gently, just for a second, his fingers brushed mine. The contact was small, barely anything at all, and yet my entire chest tightened around it. He pulled his hand away almost immediately, as if afraid of what it meant. The rest of the walk passed in silence. When we reached the street corner, he didn't look back. I stood there long after he disappeared, rain soaking to my jacket, heart pounding harder than the storm. That was the night I realized something dangerous had begun. I told myself I would create distance. I promised I wouldn't let feelings grow where they didn't belong. But when the cafe door opened the next evening and Ryan stepped inside again, all those promises fell quiet. Because even before anything had happened, I already knew I was standing on the edge of something that would eventually cost us everything. After that night in the rain, everything felt different, charged with meaning we both pretended not to notice. Ryan still came to the cafe. I still served his coffee the same way. From the outside, nothing had changed. But inside me, everything had shifted. Our conversations grew softer, slower. We began talking about things we had never touched before, dreams that faded, choices we couldn't undo, the versions of ourselves we used to imagine. He spoke about pressure, like it was a weight stitched into his bones. I spoke about loneliness like it was a room I could never quite leave. Some nights, he stayed until the lights dimmed and the music stopped. He watched me clean again and again, as if he was afraid to leave before something important was said. But neither of us ever crossed that line. Not with words, not with intention. And yet, the line kept moving closer. He started walking me home after my shifts. At first, it felt practical. Then it became a ritual neither of us admitted we needed. We talked quietly under streetlights, our shadows stretching long across empty sidewalks. Once, without thinking, I laughed at something he said and leaned into his arm. He didn't pull away. The guilt came later, slow and heavy. One evening, he told me Lucas had asked why he was suddenly home so late all the time. The way he said her name made my chest ache. Not with jealousy, with the sharp awareness that someone kind was standing on the other side of our silence. "She thinks I'm training harder," he said. "And is that true?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he shook his head. That was when the ache turned into something dangerous. The night of the kiss was quiet. Too quiet. We were in my living room after another late walk. The lights were low, the city noise distant. We stood near the window, speaking softly so the world wouldn't overhear us. He had been talking about how trapped he felt, how every path forward seemed to disappoint someone. "You don't disappoint me," I said without thinking. The word surprised both of us. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time, not as a friend, not as a secret, but as a truth he had been running from. It happened in a moment too fragile to describe. A question in his eyes, an unspoken permission in mine. Our foreheads touched before anything else did. No rush, no urgency, just breath, hesitation, and then the smallest meeting of lips, uncertain, trembling. He pulled back almost instantly. "I can't," he whispered. The guilt crushed the quiet between us. He left that night without looking back. I watched his figure fade into darkness, knowing we had crossed something we could never undo. For days he stayed away. The cafe felt hollow without him. I told myself this was how it was supposed to be. I told myself I should be relieved. But every time the doorbell rang, my heart lifted before I could stop it, and fell when it wasn't him. When he finally returned, his eyes were shadowed with exhaustion. "I tried to stop thinking about you," he said quietly. "I failed. We didn't touch. We didn't repeat what had happened. But the truth sat between us like a living thing." Meanwhile, Lucas began to feel the distance growing. He forgot the small details she used to count on. He looked at his phone during conversations. His laughter came slower, thinner. She asked if he was happy. He said yes too quickly. Mark noticed too. "You've been strange lately," Mark joked one afternoon. "You disappear all the time now." Ryan forced a smile. I was standing nearby, listening from a distance, feeling the quiet fear creep higher inside my chest. The weight of secrecy changed everything. The moments that once felt gentle now felt fragile. When Ryan held my gaze too long, I saw the cost behind it. When he walked away, I felt the echo of a life I didn't have the right to touch. One night, I overheard his argument with Lucas through his phone. Her voice was tight, confused, wounded. He kept his words soft, careful, dishonest. When he hung up, he leaned against the cafe wall and closed his eyes. "I hate who I'm becoming," he said. I didn't know how to answer that. The distance returned after that. He tried to pull away again. He left earlier, walked faster, spoke less. But even that couldn't erase what had already grown between us. Because the more he tried to escape it, the deeper we both fell into the truth we were too afraid to face. And somewhere, just beyond our quiet, hidden world, consequences were already moving toward us. Unnoticed, unstoppable. The night everything unraveled felt ordinary at first. The cafe had emptied early. Rain traced slow lines down the glass, mirroring the quiet inside. Ryan stayed after closing again, sitting in his usual place near the window, watching me wipe down the counter like he always did. We spoke in short sentences, both of us careful, as if we could sense that something fragile was hanging in the air. There was a strange calm between us, too still, too heavy. "I don't want to keep lying," he said finally. The words settled deep in my chest. I didn't ask who he meant to. We both knew. He stood and walked toward me, slowly, as if every step mattered. We didn't touch. We didn't need to. The truth sat between us, visible in the silence. For a moment, the world felt very far away. Then the door opened. The bell rang once. Clear, sharp. Lucas stood frozen in the entrance, rain on her coat, eyes fixed on the space between Ryan and me. She didn't see a kiss. She didn't see a touch. But she saw the thing that mattered most. The way we looked at each other. The way guilt and connection lived side by side in that single moment. No one spoke. Ryan turned pale. I felt my pulse in my ears. Lucas looked at us for several long seconds, as if she were trying to memorize the truth she never wanted to find. Then she quietly turned and walked out. The door closed behind her without a sound. Ryan moved as if he might follow her, then stopped. He dragged his hands over his face, breath shaking. "It's over," he said. And he was right, though not in the way he meant. He told her everything that night. Not all the details. Just the truth that he'd been hiding his heart from her and giving pieces of it somewhere else. Lucas didn't shout. She didn't beg. She simply listened as if something inside her had already settled. The next morning, he packed his things and left their apartment. She let him go with a quiet strength that broke something in him far deeper than anger ever could. After that, he disappeared for weeks, and I started preparing to leave. The town felt too small for the weight of what we had done. Every empty table in the cafe reminded me of him. Every streetlight felt like the place where everything had first begun. I applied for a transfer, packed boxes slowly, telling myself that distance was the only way pain ever learned to soften. Ryan found me the night before I was supposed to go. He stood outside my door, thinner, quieter, stripped of the armor he used to wear so easily. "I lost her," he said, "and I deserve that." I didn't invite him in right away. I wasn't sure I had the strength. "I don't blame you," he said, "but I don't blame her either." We sat across from each other in silence. No touching, no excuses, just truth. "I don't want to be a secret anymore," I said. He nodded. His eyes were wet, but he didn't let the tears fall. "I know," he whispered. There was nothing left to promise each other. Whatever existed between us had been built in shadows, and shadows don't survive the light. The next morning, I left town. Months passed. Cities changed. Seasons shifted. Life moved forward the way it always does, slowly, then all at once. I found a new job, a new room, a new routine. Sometimes, I almost convinced myself that I had outrun the memory. Then one evening, I got a message. It was short. I finally told the truth. To everyone. I don't know if it makes me better, but it makes me real. I didn't reply right away. Because some truths arrive when they're no longer meant to be acted on, only understood. I never saw Lucas again, but I still think of her sometimes. Of the quiet way she walked out of that cafe. Of the strength it took to leave without breaking herself into anger. And I think of Ryan, too. Of the boy who stood in the rain and said he felt like he was living two lives. In the end, he chose one. So did I. Some loves are not meant to last. They are meant to reveal, to break illusions, to teach us the cost of dishonesty and the value of becoming someone who no longer needs to hide. He walked in on our love, and in that one glimpse, everything changed, not because we were discovered, but because, for the first time, we were finally seen.